Slavery isn't just one nation's dark chapter, it's a long worldwide story. From ancient Mesopotamia to today's supply chains, this practice has devastated many groups of people around the world. Welcome back to the Human History Project. In this video, we're going to walk through the facts everyone should know about the global history of slavery. Starting in the ancient world, the earliest records of slavery include laws from Sumer, circa 2100 BCE, which already list penalties for harming an enslaved person, proof that the system was old even then. The Roman Empire had a massive slave economy, with scholars estimating 1 in 4 people in the empire was enslaved. Enslaved people in the Roman Empire were captives from war, debt, or birth. Slavery is older than the pyramids and bigger than any single civilization. The Arab and Islamic trade routes were active between the years 650 and 1900, with an estimate of at least 10 to 12 million Africans, 3 million Europeans, and up to 1 million South Asians taken across the Sahara, Red Sea, and Indian Ocean markets. Lasting over 1,300 years, this slave trade is estimated to have traded around 17 million enslaved people. However, due to the long duration and the fact that few detailed ledgers were kept, primary sources are not as abundant as those from the transatlantic slave trade. In Europe's medieval slave markets, Vikings sold Slavs in the 10th century. The English word slave comes via Old French esclave from medieval Latin sclavus, which originally meant Slav in reference to the people of Eastern and Central Europe. Because large numbers of Slavs were captured and sold into servitude during the Middle Ages, particularly through Venetian, Byzantine, and Arab markets, their name became a generic term for anyone held in bondage, and the word spread with that new meaning into many European languages. In Asia, China's Tang and Song courts kept household slaves, and Korea's hereditary Nobi system lasted well into the 19th century. The Nobi were a hereditary class of bonded laborers. At their 15th to 17th century height, they may have made up about 1/3 of the population, serving as household attendants or semi-independent tenant farmers. Even though a few could hold property, or even their own Nobi, they remained legally their master's human chattel until the Gabo reform of 1894 abolished the system. This brings us to the transatlantic slave trade. Roughly 12.5 million Africans boarded slave ships between 1526 and 1867. About 10.7 million survived the Middle Passage. This was part of the triangular trade. The triangular trade was a 3-part sea journey that kept repeating itself. First, ships left Europe, loaded with things like cloth, metal pots, and guns. They sailed south to West Africa, where those goods were traded for captured African people. The frightened captives were then forced across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas and made to work on farms that grew sugar, cotton, and tobacco. Finally, the ships carried those crops back to Europe to sell for big profits. So the triangle kept repeating itself, earning money at every corner while stealing millions of people's freedom. Chattel slavery was an important element of the transatlantic slave trade. In the Atlantic world, enslaved people were legally property for life, and so were their children. Their forced labor was the economic engine for the production of sugar, cotton, and tobacco, the profits of which funded canals, mansions, and even early railroads in Europe and the US. From the late 18th century onward, abolition unfolded in overlapping waves. Britain helped ignite this by outlawing its own Atlantic slave trade in 1807 and, after decades of pressure from black and white campaigners, abolishing slavery across most of its empire in 1833. The Royal Navy's West Africa Squadron then spent half a century intercepting slaving ships. Influenced by both humanitarian activism and enslaved people's resistance, most dramatically Haiti's 1804 revolution, other powers followed, with France abolishing slavery in 1848, the United States after its Civil War in 1865, and Brazil, the last in the Americas, with the Golden Law of 1888. Global treaties such as the 1890 Brussels Act and the League of Nations 1926 Slavery Convention extended abolition to Africa and the Middle East, while Saudi Arabia abolished slavery in 1962 and Mauritania in 1981, then criminalized it in 2007. These events formally ended the practice by the 20th century. Today, modern anti-slavery laws and international agreements aim to eradicate forced labor and trafficking that persist despite legal abolition. Ending laws was a milestone, not a finish line. The International Labor Organization's 2021 estimate counts approximately 50 million people living in modern slavery, 28 million in forced labor, and 22 million in forced marriages, showing us that slavery may have changed its costume, but it hasn't left the stage. So why does this matter, and why do we all need to know it? Every continent has chapters in this story. Understanding that not only prevents finger-pointing amnesia, but also empowers us to make sure that the tragedies of the past are never repeated in the future. Slavery is not just the past, it's a pattern we can still break. Share these facts, start the conversation in the comments below, and let's make history's hardest lessons guide tomorrow's decisions. Be sure to check the video description for references, check out our website for teaching resources, and if you learned something from this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. See you in the next one.